All right, I guess this is going to be my end of the year wrap up recap. The whole shebang. 24 is over. And as you see in the title, I'm going to talk a little bit about producers and beat makers and mixers and engineers and artists. The usual. I did a video a while back called This is what makes 90s hip hop. This is what made 90s hip hop different, I believe, might have been the title. And that kind of got some attention for some of the things I guess that I pointed out about beat making with regards to like guys like Jay Dilla and Q-Tip and a few others. And I'm going to continue on a little bit with some of that. Continue on talking about some of my experience. A lot of it comes up from, I'm kind of sifting through my notes, sifting through my table. First of all, thanks for subscribing and liking and all that. I've somehow crossed the 10,000 sub threshold. It makes me quite dangerous. God only knows what's could come next from this. I could be chasing Rick Beato anytime. So a lot of stuff lately has been talked about with regards to plugins, which I find interesting, particularly things like FabFilter Pro Q4 and several others. And I watched the occasional stream or video with the guys that review plugins and review gear and talk about gear and talk about, what they use things for. Actually, they never talk about what they use it for. Some of them talk about it like, oh, I use this to get rid of resonant frequencies on basses, or like if a bass has a note popping out, I can use this EQ to address that. Interesting stuff, I find. My question is, and this is things I talk about with people that I work with, mentor, give advice to, that occasionally call me up, or that I'm in the room with, and they ask, like, what do you do about this, or what do you do about that? Unfortunately, I can't pull punches. I mean, I've been there. I was in that spot many years ago. I was wondering, like, why do my tracks suck? Why do my mixes not hold up? Why does the production things that I'm working on, why don't they sound like Quincy Jones productions? Why don't they sound like Bruce Woodian's mixes? Why don't my recordings sound like Prince? Give you an example. So we've all been there. And I talk on my live stream on Friday nights, we always refer to, or at least I refer to, the layer cake, where the movie, the infamous speech by Eddie Temple, where he talks about that when you're born, you take shit. You get out into the world, you take a little less shit. Or you take more shit. You get out into the world, you take a little less shit. Until one day you're up in the rarefied atmosphere, as he likes to call it, and you forgot what shit even looks like. Well, I will tell you this, that there is hope. There comes a point and there comes a time where after you've dealt with a million bad-sounding tracks and a million bad-sounding songs, bad production, you get a little bit further. You start getting to the point where the recording quality is not an issue. You get a little further to where the people you're working with that are laying the tracks know how to play on records. You get a point to where the singers know how to sing on records. The producers know how to produce their records. And you, by that time, you do forget what shit tracks look like, sound like. I mean, you could recognize them when you hear something from someone else and you go, yeah, that's shit. That's not good. And that's not going to be good. I don't care if you put a parallel compression on it. You dress it up with a little multi-band EQ. You tweak it with a little Fab Filter Pro Q4. It's still going to be shit. I'm dropping the S-bomb like crazy on this one. And you'll recognize it quicker. I was talking to a friend of mine this morning who I've done a lot of production with, mixing, production, songwriting, track making. And I was discussing it with him. I said, why is it that people aren't making the decisions sooner that a track is not ready or it's just not good? So if I can give you an example, it would be this. Say I'm in the studio with someone, and this can go back many years. It can go back to like an hour ago. You're going to lay a kick drum. If the kick drum that you're using isn't working to some degree, you don't use it. You just move on. You just find another kick drum. You move them. If you're recording a kick drum, you're recording a drummer, you move the microphone. You move the pillow that's inside the kick. You change microphones. And at the last resort, you change drummers. It's that simple. The tracks that you hear, that you love, and I'm saying going back to 65 to 95 to 2005 to 2025, the tracks that you love, generally speaking, broadly speaking, the tracks that are there on the multi are good. When you push the faders up on this thing, whatever it is, you take a tape from, I guarantee you take a tape from 1998 with some Jay-Z track, and you put the faders up, you put both tapes on the machines, if it's 48 track, you push the faders up, it's all there. It's not like, well, it'll be there once I put Fab Filter on every track and dissect the shit out of it and figure out what the problems are. The problems don't exist. The ingredients are there. The reason why that we were able to make, and why great record makers are able to make great records, is because the ingredients are there. They aren't concocted. It's only news to people that have never been in the room. Is it harsh? I watched a quick clip of Butch Walker on Beato's channel. He was pretty candid, and I think there's some good stuff in there for you to check out. In particular, when he talked about his first writing session with Desmond Child, who is one of the most successful pop songwriters, probably in pop music history. And he explained the shock that he went through when he realized what being on a real writing session was like, with real ruthless MFs who will tell you, no, that's shit. That's got to go. You're not real. And that's not good enough. That was just some of the stuff that he also made a little bit of a mention about Tom Lord Alge, and that, like, you know, Tom Lord Alge was a lot to deal with. The first time he went to deal with him about mixing a record, maybe Tom had some editing ideas that Butch didn't agree with, but he did admit later on, he was like, it sounded good because he knew what the hell was going on. Work with people that know what the hell is going on. Even if you have to fight with them over an edit or a tweak here or there or a level change. Why your tracks and mix... Yeah, you're frustrated because your tracks, and you know it in your gut, your tracks aren't as good as Pharrell's tracks. And guess what? If you're getting in the pool to try and eat off the same food source that the Pharrells and the Timberlands and the Drakes and the Rihannas, they're all eating from the same food source. They want to win. If you want to win, maybe you need to be as good as what they're doing, because it's better than your stuff. That's really what it comes down to, is it's better whether you like hearing it or not. The songwriting is better, the production is better, the recording is better, the choice of sounds is better, the mixing is better, the A&R is better, the performances are better. And until you get to the point where you're in that rarefied atmosphere where you can say, wow, I'm there, they're better. They are better. Someday it will be you. Some of you. Someday it will be you. Maybe 2025 will be the time. I mean, I go back to my days coming up. I started out, home studios. They existed already. Owner-operator studios, the studio where the guy that owns it is the engineer, producer too. You start hearing things sounding a little bit better maybe there from the home studio. And you get to that owner-operator place and you're like, this is pretty good, but it's not it. You get in the car, you put the cassette in. This is going back a few days. You get in the car, you put the cassette in. Yeah, it still doesn't sound like that Billy Idol record. Why? And then one day you get invited to do something maybe at a big studio with some players, some names you recognize. And you're like, this is different. There's something different. I don't know what it is yet, but there's something different. You're still the same, but you're in a different environment. You're with the different cats who like pick up their instrument and they've got track making attitude, vibe. They understand a different language than you do in the beginning. Then you start catching on to the language. You start catching on to things that work. Wow. All right. I see. I've seen that before. You'll get to that point where you're like, I've seen that before. That works. And yeah, that's standard operating procedure. That's industry standard. Using that bass. There's a reason why someone uses that P bass or that Music Man bass. Because it sounds better than that piece of junk that I was using back at my friend's studio. And wow, they go direct, and they're not even messing with the amp that the owner operator guy was obsessing over. Why? Because he was trying to sell you on the idea that you needed to record there and use his bass amp, because that was part of what he was selling. I'm getting into the weeds there with some stuff. It's an end of the year review. I'm a 10,000 sub dragon, as we called it on our, maybe I called it on Friday night. From note one. Yes. So then you get to the point where you start working. Maybe you've climbed your way up the layer cake a little bit, and then you start running the show yourself. You're running the show. You're the engineer. Maybe then maybe you start getting into production, mixing. And even then you're kind of fighting through things. But when you've seen enough and you've heard enough, you know very quickly that track will work. That track will work, and that track won't work. And the one that doesn't work is a non-negotiable that's got to go. You have to fix the source. You have to find the right kick, the right snare, and make that shit happen. Not think that like some magical crap in the mix is going to fix everything. Now, when you get tracks handed to you that are shit, hopefully you have enough experience down the road that you know how to make moves. There are times where you have to make the move where you call up someone and say, I'm mixing your track, and that bass has to be fixed. It's out of tune, or maybe you have to tune it with, some gadgetry. There are all these things. Hey, that vocal, or those overheads are out of phase. What are we going to do about that? Sometimes you have to make that uncomfortable call to somebody if you're not there from day one on the putting the thing together. Is this doom and gloom? I don't think so. I think this is a nice end of the year reality check. Trying to be friendly about it. I saw some good videos that some people recommended to me. There's a good video about the F9 Studio Sonic State. It's on the Sonic State page, I believe. And the guy that does the video, all the sound design and sampling and everything for F9. And I've found F9 to be, he was in the Freemasons at one point, the remix group. I find the F9 stuff to always be high quality. You want to stick with high quality. You want to industry standard meat and potatoes. There are going to be like the guy who's like the unicorn, the producer or artist, the unicorn innovator person who, does things a little left of center and gets away with it. That's a different thing. That's not like an everyday, like make quality kind of stuff thing. That's like, it's like that gourmet guy that makes the certain kind of pizza, but it's got a different thing to it. You know what I mean? You can't mess with that, but don't expect that. And also just don't expect that to be like a good idea to try and find that every day. The F9 stuff, the samples. He did talk about an interesting thing regarding the Lindrum, which I had talked about regarding the Akai MPC. Is that there is definitely something to play with your sample trimming. And if you want a snare to lay back, you don't sample it right up. You don't trim it right up to the transients. And he was talking about how they found that the snare that came, the prom that came with the LM2 Lindrum had a little bit of digital air at the top of the snare. So naturally, if you hit that button and there's just like this 10 milliseconds of space before the transient of the snare hit, that snare is going to be laid back. No matter how quantized it is, it's going to be laid back in the beat. Those are things you're supposed to really learn, get the hang of at some point. Like I said, a thank you for subscribing, liking, buying me a coffee, super chatting, being on the live streams, which are a lot of fun. They're about 4 hours on a Friday night. They are hectic for me because there's like usually somewhere around 500 or 600 chat messages an hour, and they come rapidly. I mean, it just feels like at some point it feels a little bit like there's not enough caffeine in the world for me to keep up with this. I don't know if this video will do any good or it'll wreck my channel. I have no idea. I've got some stuff planned for 25 with regards to doing some demo stuff, like sharing the screen, showing you some stuff in my mix environment, production environment. Got some new sounds and things I'm getting ready to throw up on the membership page. Free sounds. I mean, free. Membership's $1 a month, I believe. And a lot of times if you come on the live, you get a free membership because guys are contributing memberships at will. This is a daytime recording thing for me. I've been under the weather. A lot of nighttime NyQuil. Crazy. Sessions postponed. Can't get other people sick. Can't get other artists sick. Even though I think I got the bug from the artist originally. That's how it goes. Happy New Year. Thanks again. See ya. Hitting the button.